Welcome to So You Want to Be a People Manager. My name is Peter Dempsey. I've been a people manager for around 8 years. This is my attempt to demystify what is often a confusing process that leaves people wondering what they need to do to become a people manager for a first time, what they need to do to transition when they finally do get that people management opportunity and setting themselves up for success, and what do they do to go on and build their career from there. So I'm going to take you through a presentation that I've given a number of times and people have found it helpful. You can find more from me on my website at peterdempseywrites.com. I've also written a book called People Management from the Ground Up, and I'll put a link to that in the description. So today we're going to cover a number of different topics. I want you to think about, do you really want to be a people manager? And that may seem obvious if you're here on this call, but I've often found that it's not. And there are sometimes aspects of people management that prospective applicants haven't even really thought about. So I want to give you some research, some things to think over that's going to help you decide whether or not becoming a people manager is the right step for you. This is also a career change, so you're likely a subject matter expert in some particular area as an individual contributor. You've built your career up to that point. Are you at a point in your career where you're willing to make a transition and, to a certain extent, start over and start building some new skills? That's something to consider. So, even if you are sure that you want to become a people manager at some point, this may or may not be the right time for you to do so. I'm going to give you some pre work, some things that you can go over that's going to help get this clear for you. And it's going to help prepare yourself for the interview process and also for the work that lies ahead as a people manager. We're going to talk about finding your first people manager job. This can be tough and frustrating for many people, and it is challenging, but I'm hopefully going to make it less challenging for you and more clear what you need to do. And last but not least, we're going to talk about life as a people manager once you get there. We're not going to cover everything, but I'm going to give you some insights that I've found helpful in my career and will hopefully make the transition more seamless for you. So, why do you want to be a people manager? This is really something I want you to get clear about. Um, is there a particular problem that you're trying to solve in your business that you can only solve as a people manager? Is there something that you want to do in your career or for your business that you can only do as a people manager? What are you going to bring to the role that's unique to you? What experiences do you have? What perspectives do you have? Um, do some research on what it means to be a people manager, what it means to be a business leader. Are you passionate about this topic? Are you willing to get in and invest your own time and learn? Now, this is really going to help clarify things for you so you can decide the right path to move forward in your own career. But it's also going to help you demonstrate that you've thought about this when you do get to the interview process and you are looking for these opportunities. You're going to have something to talk about. You're going to show that you've invested your own time to learn and you understand what you're getting yourself into, and you can speak the language and you have some ideas that you're going to bring to the table. Now, are you ready to start over? I mentioned this in the beginning. This is a different job. Even if you're in the same domain, even if you're moving from an individual contributor role to a people manager role on the same team, you're moving into a different job. So, are you ready to start over? Are you ready to give up that subject matter expertise that you've built potentially over a number of years and a lot of career capital that you have and the valuable skills that you bring? Are you going to be willing to start from the ground floor, building up these leadership skills, these communication skills, these management skills? So it's all very exciting, something I'm very passionate about, but it is a fair amount of work, and you have to be comfortable at a point to have that growth mindset to be able to step back and say, okay, I'm going to give up somewhat what got me here, and I'm willing to take on this new challenge and to focus on learning for some time. Now, think about creating your own management philosophy. So, this is something, again, that's going to help you in the interview process, talking about what you're bringing to the table, but it's also going to help you once you get into that people management role, because that's when you're going to need to deploy this, your own philosophy into the real world and start using it. So, how do you do this? Look at other leaders that inspire you. You can follow them online, read things they've written, read articles about them, see how they present different ideas, look at different ones, draw inspiration from a variety of different places. Really, the biggest recommendation I can give to you is to read and to read about leadership and people management. And there's so many things that intersect with that. There's psychology. If you're a parent, parenting is often very similar to leadership. There's productivity reading, all sorts of different things. This is really what helped me understand my why for getting into people management, and how I started wanting to think about my own philosophy and pulling pieces from different leaders that I read about. Another book you can read, if you haven't already, is Mindset and understanding really what it means to have growth mindset. That's something that you're going to need both for you as an individual leader managing a team, but also how can you bake that into your team's culture and build growth mindset in other individuals? Are you willing to adapt to change? Change is constant in work and life, more and more so these days, and how we navigated ourselves is our own skill, but also how do we navigate teams and individuals through this change? And that's something that you're going to have to do as a people manager and as a leader. Also, you can look inward. What are your own moral values and your beliefs that are really important and intrinsic to who you are as a person? That's something that you want to integrate into your management philosophy, and it's going to be a unique strength that you bring to the table. And it's always going to be more powerful when you connect your true values into your work. So these are all things that are going to help you in the actual practice, and it's going to give you something interesting and powerful to talk about when you do get to the interview phase, applying for that first people manager or potentially second or third or so on people manager job in the future. Now, many people think if I could only tell everyone what to do as a manager, I have all these great ideas, I'm running into all these roadblocks, I see the path forward, but people just aren't listening and they're not doing it because I'm not in a manager role. Um, Unfortunately, I hate to break it to you, that's not really the way things work most of the time as a people manager. So you have to get comfortable with both direct and indirect authority as a people manager. If you think you're going to come in and only lead by ordering people around, using your direct authority to get what you want, it's not going to take you very far. So even though you do have that ability, and there are certain scenarios where it is important to lead with direct authority and to put sort of your foot down and set the path forward, the vast majority of time you're leading with indirect authority, helping your team get buy-in so they believe and share the vision for what you're doing and can bring their passion and commitment to it. But also, you can be working with lots of different stakeholders, whether it's your own manager, whether it's other teams, and you're not going to be able to just tell them what to do. So even if you could lead your own team with just direct authority, you're going to need to be strong in managing with indirect authority. So take advantage of your time as an individual contributor where you have to lead with indirect authority. Build up these skills, get good at influencing and making your case and understanding what will bring others along. And then you'll be able to bring that skill to bear when you do become a people manager. Now, finding a manager position may not be easy. These are often competitive roles. And you just think about the ratio of individual contributors to people managers. There's a lot more individual contributor positions than people manager positions. So just understand it's competitive. It may take some time, and you're going to have to work through it. And all you can do is control yourself and build up your skills and put your best self forward. So my recommendations are that you should be open about your search. You should talk to your current manager and say, hey, this is my aspiration in my career to become a people manager like you. Where am I? Give me some feedback. What skills am I strong in that I could bring to the table here? And where do I need to develop? And that may also lead to some opportunities where if they see that you're interested in this path, they may bring opportunities your way that'll build towards that they might not otherwise. And they may have conversations with their colleagues, and you never know. There may be opportunities that you wouldn't find out other ways if you weren't open about it. Beyond your individual manager, try to be as open as you can about the work that you're doing and your aspirations. So people know you, they know what you bring to the table. Find opportunities to speak, to run sessions, to participate in workshops. especially where the manager community in your organization lies. So you become a known entity and they can see what you bring to the table. Um, you have to decide, am I willing to potentially leave my group, my organization, or my company to pursue a people manager role? That's going to give you more options, but it may or may not be the right choice for you. But it's something to think about whether that's appropriate or not. Um, and it may take more time if you're not willing to make a drastic change like that. And that may be perfectly fine, or it may not be. It really just depends on what's right for you. Leverage your network. Beyond the your direct manager, your manager's peers. Try and connect with managers of different organizations, talk to them, get their feedback. You can even ask to do a mock interview for a people manager position, which I think is really helpful. Have them go through and interview you like you were a candidate to be a manager under them. See what types of questions they have, see what sort of feedback they give you. It's really going to help you prepare and have a realistic view of where you stand with your skills. Now, as an individual contributor, people sometimes feel like it's a chicken and an egg proposition, right? I can't get the experience I need to be a people manager until I'm a people manager. But there's lots of things that you can do as an individual contributor that are going to help you build these experiences. You can lead virtual teams. There's often projects going on. Look for opportunities to lead those teams. So even though those teams don't report directly to you, it's a very similar experience as managing a team. And it's something you can talk about, how you manage those dynamics, how you bring different people together to coordinate work. That's something that any individual contributor can do. Be a culture lead. Understand the culture on your team, your organization, your company. Participate or run events for that. Make sure you're bringing your colleagues along and aligning them to it. That's an incredibly important aspect of organizational leadership and people management. Um, Lastly, think about how you can develop others. These could be your peers, it could be junior teammates. You can mentor them. It could be one to one, many to one. These are all things that are generally very accessible to individual contributors. They'll give you something to talk about and they'll help you build up those skills and experiences you need before you get that first people manager role. Now, when you get to interviewing, you've gone through all these other things, you've finally gotten an interview. Some things to think about preparing for. Oftentimes, manager interviews are more culture based. So, understanding the company culture as much as you can. What are their values? What specifically do they expect leaders or managers to value in the organization? So, do some research. If it's within your own company, that should be pretty easy to find. Even externally, you can go and look and read about what management behaviors and values that company aspires to have. And make sure you can talk about those when you come into the interview, not just at the company level, but how you're going to bring your individual practice and live those values. Understand DEI topics. Have a perspective on that. This is a great area to read in and to learn more. And at different times and different companies, there's different value placed on this. Regardless of that, you're going to be working with a diverse set of people as a manager. And it's important to understand those different backgrounds and how you can be the best manager to those individuals. It's often something that comes up on interviews, and I think it's worth preparing for, and it's a valuable skill to have. Understanding the philosophy of psychological safety, which is in the inclusion space of DE&I. How do you build a team environment where there's a culture that allows speaking up, that values people calling out opportunities or maybe where mistakes are being made, especially by more senior people? Understand what that means and have some specific examples about how you would bring that to bear on your team. That's something that is valued in pretty much every organization these days. And if you're not familiar with it, definitely go and do some reading on the topic and understand why it's important, not just making a great place to work, but for high performance teams. I mentioned growth mindset. Definitely understand what this means. Read the book. Think about some ways that you've demonstrated growth mindset in your own career and been willing to grow and change and not adopt a fixed mindset in the face of challenges. Think about how you're going to have presence, this idea of executive presence. And this can mean a lot of different things. And in an engineering organization, it might mean one thing. In sales, it might mean another. Different levels of seniority, it might mean different things. What does that mean to you? How are you going to show up with this presence in the interview and just in general when you present yourself as a team leader? And lastly, thinking about how you're going to show ownership of a business and a team and taking responsibility for what that team does and delivers, while at the same time empowering individuals on that team to go out and lead on their own and to be successful and to do their best work. So, a couple pointers on interviewing. Now, let's say you've gone through the interview process, you're hired, you're a brand new people manager. What does life look like? Well, a lot of times, and for many people, it's like drinking from the fire hose. You've got a lot coming at you right away, depending on the state of the team. You may have some things to deal with there. Probably lots of learning that you're going to need to do. My recommendation is try to focus on balance and boundaries. You likely can't do it all right away. And by doing your best to stay balanced and to manage the things coming at you, you're going to be able to show up in a calm way and do things that are best for your team and make decisions from a clear-headed space. If you try and do everything at once, it's possible you can get overwhelmed, likely, I think, and then it's hard to make the best decisions when you're in that state. Really focus on learning what the rhythm of the business is for your organization and for your team. Um, when do you have different types of meetings? When does budget planning happen? When do you do reviews or check-ins on careers with people? All that sort of thing. It's all going to be new the first year. So give yourself some grace, understand that you've got a lot to learn, and it will get easier in subsequent years. Now, your actual team that you manage, your direct reports, really important to build that connection with them, especially as a new manager or with a new team. I really think it's important to prioritize connection time. So, one on one meetings where, yes, you may be working through some business needs or some projects that your team members have. But a lot of that, especially early on, is just getting to know each other and to understand how you're going to work together, what your values are, what people's strengths are, how they like to work together, all that sort of things. Laura Mae Martin at Google has a book called Uptime, and she talks about different types of meetings and generally a fan of trying to avoid unnecessary meetings, but meetings specifically for connection with your team are a priority, especially with many of us working in remote and hybrid scenarios, and especially if you have directs who are fully remote, making sure that you have that time to connect with them one on one, ideally when you can see each other on video, and building up that real relationship, even if it's remotely. Time zones can be tricky with that. That's not a problem that I think anyone is ever going to be able to solve. But doing your best to make those work out if you're managing a global team or a team spread across different time zones. I try and do my best to meet in a time that's friendly for directs on my team if they're not in my time zone. That's not always possible, but sort of in the spirit of servant leadership, that's my approach. You can't always do it. And really just talk to people and see what their preference is. Some people would prefer to meet at different times or in their evening or early in the morning. So just ask and try and align on that. Everybody's going to be in different individual situations. So that's why it's so important to make these connections and learn about people. I would say you will be surprised what people will tell you during these one-on-ones. People will share all sorts of things you may or may not want to know. So just being ready for that and handling it gracefully and being supportive of what they tell you just comes with the territory. Now, part of being a people manager and a team leader is giving feedback. Sometimes it can be uncomfortable to give critical feedback, but try not to wait. Usually, the longer you wait, the worse it gets, and you don't really give the direct report on your team an opportunity to address that as early as possible. So get comfortable being uncomfortable and try and give that feedback with the idea that clear is kind. Likewise, praise. Sometimes you would think, oh, that's obvious. Like when I have praise to give my team, I'll give it, especially for top performers. But one of the things that I've noticed is sometimes we take for granted that high performers know how well they're doing. But oftentimes they're the ones most in need of your praise as a people manager. So making sure you don't forget that and being very vocal about praise across the board. Now, you don't have to be over the top with it. It needs to be authentic and real. But just as you want to give critical feedback and opportunities, you want to make sure that you're also giving praise for work that's done well. Now, you're going to need to build up a whole set of new skills for yourself. You may have done some of the pre-work, some reading, some classes, things like that. That's going to help you get started. But there's so much to learn, and it's really never ending. So, if you have sort of a learning path or supported learning for your organization, definitely take that. You may be tempted to try and rush through it to get it done. I think you're better off taking longer, assuming you can, and you're making sure that you're actively learning the material, not just kind of clicking through and checking the box on those things. It's useful information, but only if you take the time to go through it and digest it. Make sure you're doing self-directed learning. This is going to allow you to build a practice of learning that goes on forever. For me, this is mostly in reading, but you can also search out and find your own online training courses, different content that you consume. There's so much out there, and you can pull from so many different areas and apply it to leadership and people management work. Now, again, we mentioned sort of the power of your network when you're looking for an opportunity. But now that you're a people manager, that same network or your network of peer managers is going to help support you. Believe it or not, sometimes being a people manager can feel a bit lonely or isolating, kind of solving all these hard problems by yourself. And being able to talk to peers who are facing the same challenges or who can share what that experience was like for them when they went through it is really going to help you manage the workload and manage some of the stress that comes with it. It's going to help you think through your decision making and come to better decisions than you might on your own. Make sure you're active about asking your manager and peers to give you feedback so that you can develop. And in the same way, you wouldn't want to wait to give feedback to your own team, give them an opportunity, make it easy for them to give you feedback, let them know that you want to get better, that you can handle it. And it's not fun getting critical feedback, but especially as a new manager, you're not going to know everything. And it's going to help you get better faster if you're willing to take that feedback and take action on it. And then lastly, invest more in getting to know yourself, which may sound kind of silly. Like obviously you know yourself, but doing self-assessments like the Strengths Finder or things like that, looking at your own sort of psychology, your way of thinking, your approach to things, what you gravitate towards and what you don't. That's useful information to have, and you can use it to shape your leadership style, play to your strengths, and then look to build a team and leverage colleagues that may be able to fill in areas that you aren't as strong in. Now, got all this stuff going on, all this learning, all these people to connect with and understand. It's easy to forget about managing your own career, especially, you have this idea of servant leadership, bringing up your team, supporting them, doing what the business needs. Sometimes you can forget to take care of yourself and manage your own career. You have to still prioritize this. You're not a bad person for caring about yourself and your own career. Obviously, you want to do all these things, so advocate for yourself as well as your team, but understand how you can continue to highlight your own impact, get clarity from your own manager and your own organization about what impact looks like for you and what their expectations are. Don't just make an assumption that you know what they're expecting. And then you can go out and you can learn what is needed to deliver and ask for feedback on where you are and make adjustments. So I know that's a lot. Hopefully that's helpful. There's way more. If you want to get into the details, feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. You can subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. Talk to me, PDD. Put the links in the description. I also have a blog at peterdempseywrites.com. And last but not least, you can read my book, People Management from the Ground Up, which is a guide for new and aspiring people managers. It goes into way more detail than I did here. But I hope you enjoyed this overview, and I hope you find it helpful on your journey towards people management.